Hello, everybody. All right, welcome to the Mikestand. Today, of course, is Tuesday, November 4th, 2025. As we wait for more people to show up, we're going to, of course, give people a chance. If you haven't already, this goes for both my Rumble and my YouTube viewers. If you guys haven't already, if you guys can help out by liking and sharing the stream, see if we can get some more friendly people to engage, that'd be appreciated. Also, if anything here grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions. I'll try to answer the questions to the best of my ability. With that being said, let's do something here, see if we can. Alrighty, and hopefully, things a little bit there at least. All right. So, anyways, yeah. So today did watch a few more cartoons. Um, saw the official first appearance of Popeye's nephews of Peepeye, Pipeye, Poopeye, Popeye. Um, let's see. Also saw the debut of Spike the Bulldog in the Tom and Jerry cartoons of Dog Trouble. So yeah, so Andrew, coming up on 3 minutes now, so I guess I will talk a little bit about what's on tap for tonight. So I got three articles I'm going to go over, for, all from Bounding into Comics. Among those being talked about tonight include, let me see here, include, looks like they're going to do another film adaptation of the Batman Nightfall. Batman Nightfall. You know, arc, another animated film in that regard. Also, of course, Power Rangers and Godzilla are getting together to sell toys, basically, as they're just awaiting the Hasbro licensing deal. And apparently, there's a comic shop owner in North Carolina who actually got charged with felony obscenity charges for allegedly giving a copy of Grendel to a trick or treater. Now, as I understand it, Grendel is a pretty mature comic, as it were. So, and this kid might have been pretty young. So I guess we'll just wait and see what happens with all that. Of course, we'll see. We'll read through that and see what happens. Also, of course, we'll get caught up on, as WWE got started last night on its build towards Survivor Series at the end of the month here. We'll go over what happened on last night's Raw, look ahead to tonight's NXT, as well as report a little bit on some more friction on between WWE and AEW. We'll talk a little bit about that. And then we'll wrap things up, of course, by taking a look back at this day in each history. So, with all that being said, why don't we go ahead and get started here? And I will pull up the first article here. All right, so let's get into this. And again, if you guys haven't already, if you guys can help out by liking and sharing the stream, see if we can get some more friendly people to engage, that'd be appreciated. Also, if anything here grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions, and I will try to answer the questions to the best of my ability. So, with that being said, let's get into this. Here we go. The upcoming Batman Nightfall animated films further prove Warner Brothers is fresh out of ideas. Article by J.B. Augustine, published yesterday, November 3rd. Now, that's, of course, a scene from Batman the Animated Series from back in the 90s there. Bane, as voiced at that point by Henry Silva, did too much of a bad thing in Batman the Bane. So no one is asking for it, but Warner Brothers Animation is mining its DC back catalog for more inspiration to give us new films based on the Nightfall saga. I say in smaller quotes, films, plural, because it was announced at a New York Comic Con panel that this endeavor would be a multi-part event similar to how the animated Crisis on Infinite Earths and Watchmen projects were structured. Now, Nightfall, of course, was a story arc in Batman where he encounters Bane for the first time. Bane breaks his back, and then he has to have somebody replace him, namely Azrael. Replace him for a while as a new Batman. So, but anyways, as we continue on here, this is good news if you like the stories that gave us, quote, the man who broke the bat, unquote, in Bane, and the insane and redesign worn by Azrael. We also should consider that the impending films might be decent. They are inspired by the work of some of the best Batman writers of all time, Doug Moench, Chuck Dixon, Alan Grant, Dennis O'Neil, and Peter David. The first film is also reportedly being written by Jeremy Adams, who penned the animated Superman reboot Man of Tomorrow, which was a strong start for the chapter of the animated universe it breathed life into. However, I'm only cautiously optimistic about the whole thing because, as I see it, albeit anecdotally risk aversive, Warner Brothers is strictly going back to the well for what worked for them in the past. Now, mind you, sometimes you can get to the point where you can go to the well one too many times here. So it's like interesting how we use the well analogy here. I think that's what JB is arguing here is that, or his point is that they might be going to the well one too many times here. Let's see. See if anybody's saying anything yet. Nope. All right. Again, if you're on Rumble or YouTube, if you guys haven't already, if you guys can like and share. See if we can get some more friendly people to engage. That'd be appreciated. Also, if anything here grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions, and I will try to answer the questions to the best of my ability. So, continuing on here with the article. Yes, the arc is popular and still discussed to this day, and Bane remains one of the Dark Knight's most recognized foes of the modern era. But let's be real. His typical Warner doing the predictable thing, relying on popular, recognizable stories, characters, and titles from 30 plus years ago. It sounds logical to them and makes business sense. But the fact that they keep exploring or exploiting what they know because it's all they know is transparent to everybody. Yeah, and the problem is that if you keep regurgitating, older. I mean, yeah, it's good once in a while to go down. You know, it's good going down memory lane once in a while, but if you keep doing it over and over again, I mean, yeah, in some cases, depending on how, I mean, if it would be one thing if they decided to go all the way back to the beginning and just do the animated series going back, and just basically make an animated version of every DC story that there ever was, right? You know, just like take Action Comics #1 and just turn that into like a a cartoon called Action Comics, right? That was about 8 stories in it, so 8 stories in an hour, so approximately on average. Well, with commercials, you probably get more like maybe 48 minutes out of that. So 6 minutes cartoon basically, but on average. Doesn't necessarily mean you'd use up all 6 minutes. Obviously, some might get 8, some might get 4, but anyways, they have been doing it for years and for so long, honestly, that it feels like they have been doing it forever. You don't need to look any further than Watchmen and all its adaptations and spin-offs. Whether they be comics, live action, animated, or serialized. I don't know about you, but I think we've had enough of Alan Moore. Just from all the versions of this one work, um, in parentheses, which he has disowned, by the way, unparentheses. So even Alan Moore thinks they've overdone it. That's saying something. However, you'll find no better example of DC Warner's tendency to rehash things to death than Superman and the one Man of Steel story that best mirrors Nightfall in terms of era, scale, and resale. And I believe they're talking about the death of Superman story arc and the introduction of Doomsday is what it sounds like they're talking about there. Nothing follows a pattern quite like the death of Superman. Across multiple issues and titles, readers were introduced to a level of threat that pushed the Man of Steel to the edge and forced him into a sabbatical he wouldn't come back from right away. Considering that he was in fact killed, yeah. That threat was Doomsday, whom he haven't had a break from since the 90s. Like Watchmen, I'm a little sick of him. There's not much depth to him beyond punching Superman to death. But that doesn't stop WB from over relying on him. When they felt the desperate urge to spice up the DCAU, DCEU, Smallville, and Superman and Lois, they brought in a variation of the killing to serve his only function or flirt with it. And of course, JB giving much of his opinion here in his reporting. All right, a friendly reminder to everybody, of course, if you haven't already, you guys can like and share the stream, see if we can get some more friendly people to engage. That'd be appreciated. Also, if anything here grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions. and I will try to answer the questions to the best of my ability. All right, so let's continue on with this. This brings me back to Bane, i.e., Doomsday's analog to the Bat family. We all know what he was created for. It's so academic at this point that a recent retcon made his purpose deeply ingrained and completely on the nose. More to the point, everyone has seen him do it on the page and on the big screen in The Dark Knight Rises. Breaking the Bat became such a meme, Seth Green parodied it on Robot Chicken. It's obvious what they are chasing when the character was a climactic component of Christopher Nolan's trilogy. Otherwise known as the greatest success the studio has seen outside of breaching Moby Dick Aquaman turned out to be. The breaching Moby Dick Aquaman turned out to be. If they can't top it, they will just re-rack and try again. In other words, rinse and repeat. Those vertebrae won't break themselves. Boy, some of the kind of the word usage here and some of the way JB's using language here is pretty interesting. Hmm. Sure, there is a chance this animated cinematic Nightfall series might be good, maybe even excellent. Um, the best DC thing WB Animation has put out in years. Problem is that in this post-pandemic, post-CW, post-Snyderverse DC Studios, where streaming is paramount, no pun intended, quote unquote, or in parentheses on parentheses, and physical media is being obsolete. Um, there are also odds no one will see it or care. Moreover, that problem originates internally, not just within Warner Brothers and DC, but with boardrooms and culture of Hollywood itself. Look at the landscape of declining sales, dwindling revenue, inflated ticket prices, low ratings, and hackneyed ideas, and realize they did this to themselves. Bane didn't break the bat, a creatively bankrupt system did. Wow. Wow, that's a pretty strong statement there, JB. But I'd say a lot of people would agree that that statement is pretty true. Hmm. And it's all right. All right, so we got through the first story of the night, and we'll get ready to move on to the next one here. Head back here. Get ready for the next story we're going to hit upon here. There's articles, of course, coming from Spencer Bacouli. All right. right, then. So here we go. So upcoming Power Rangers X Godzilla Kaiju Ranger figures prove Playmates Toys serious about Hasbro licensing deal. Article by Spencer McCooley published yesterday. So let's see what they have to say about this now. So, in proving themselves perhaps the last of the American Super Sentai adaptation's true believers, current Power Rangers toy licensee Playmates Toys will apparently be breaking from licensor Hasbro's strategy of in smaller quotes, retread Mighty Morphin on small parentheses forever and ever until the end of time on parentheses on smaller parentheses there, and delve into more niche aspects of the team's history, starting with a set of Godzilla Kaiju Ranger figures. Acquiring the brand from Saban in 2018, the deal made solely on the whims of the late CEO Brian Goldner, and without any input from the company leadership, Hasbro would spend the next 7 years completely mismanaging Power Rangers, in particularly every regard, with notable failures, including the 2017 live-action movie, The Cosmic Fury led push to completely divorce the series from its Super Sentai um, that only led to its going off air and the poor handling of their now canceled yet still uncompleted Lightning Collection toy line. So those are some Kaiju Rangers, huh? Look kind of bestial right there, don't they? See, admitting that their misunderstanding of the tokusatsu team was only serving to bleed their profits, Hasbro would announce in 2025 they had granted Playmates Toys the license to, quote, develop additional cross category Power Rangers products, including action figures, blasters, plush, role play, vehicles, and accessories, unquote, and distribute them in, quote, all regions excluding Asia, unquote. The most major of Playmates Toys efforts is the Reignition collection, as released in partnership with Netflix's ongoing AI upscaling of the entire series, which plans to tackle not just the Mighty Morphin team, but each and every one of their various successors, from Mighty Morphin Alien Rangers ostensibly comic Cosmic Fury. And though their intention to even look past Zordon's first recruits already shows them to be more serious about Power Rangers toy offerings than Hasbro ever was, Playmates Toys is looking to further distinguish themselves by handling some of the team's more offbeat outings. Per leaked production images provided by Twitter user Ned Chang, at Ned Chang, among the company's upcoming releases is a set of Kaiju Ranger figures, as based on the Toho monster fused forms um, donned by the team in conclusion of Boom Studio and IDW's Godzilla versus the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers 2 comic book series. That sounds like a very interesting series, doesn't it? Merging of two franchises. I am going to need to go off camera here for a quick moment. I'll be right back. Anyways, I'll be right back. Let me put some music on. Entertain you guys while I'm gone. All right, I'm back. Anyways, let's get back to the article here. All right. All right. So, anyways, let's get back to the article here. As seen in issue 4, following a brutal defeat at the hands of Rita Repulsa's kaiju energy charged Psycho Rangers, their new powers evolving them into Psycho Red Destroyer, Psycho Black Megalon, Psycho Yellow Ghidorah, and Psycho Green Gigan. Respectively, Zordon teleports the Power Rangers back to the command center in order to speed up both their and their Zoids' recoveries. Unfortunately, rather than safety, the Power Rangers' return is met with their near simultaneous arrival of Rita's monster army, all of whom charge upon the command center with the single solitary goal of razing it to the ground. This case, the word raising here is razing, not raising. This raising means to tear something down. Raze means to tear something down. Kind of funny how you have two words that sound the same and have exact opposite meanings. ISE, raise, means to build up. RAZE means to tear down. So, kind of an interesting little wordplay there. Little etymology there for you. But anyways, as we get back to the articles here. Unfortunately, rather than we read that part. Rather than go down without a fight, Zordon instead works with Mothra's twin priestesses, the Elias and the Jet Jaguar, creator Goro Ibuki, to create a new set of power coins infused with the powers of various Godzilla level kaiju, with the resulting fusions consisting of Red Rodan Ranger, Black King Caesar Ranger, Blue Anguirus Ranger, Yellow Baragon Ranger, and Pink Mothra Ranger, and Green Godzilla Ranger. Right, try saying all that 30 times fast. And there they are right there. To this end, it's currently unknown whether the toy line will feature the entire Kaiju Ranger team, as while the leak above only confirms figures for Red Rodan, Blue Anguirus, and Green Godzilla Rangers, its packaging prominently displays the entire team, including Big G himself as clad in his Green Ranger provided Dragonzoid armor. While the Kaiju Ranger figures are rather basic in their production, featuring just the simplest of paint jobs and barest level of color detailing, such a level of quality is to be expected from Playmate's toys, whose entire business model is more focused on manufacturing items for specifically child-aged audiences rather than older, even adult collectors. Oh, it's what they want is they want action figures that kids will play with, as opposed to collectors who will treat them like they're porcelain dolls. However, as Lao Tzu once said, quote, every journey begins with a single step, unquote. And so, rather than lamenting the upcoming crossover line for being, in small quotes, less than collector level, unsmall quote, Power Rangers fans of all stripes are encouraged to celebrate the fact that there exists at least one company out there treating the franchise with even a modicum of respect, and hope that it leads to some level of revival for the beloved spin on Super Sentai. At current, Playmate Toys Kaiju Rangers figures have yet to be officially announced, and as such, do not currently have a confirmed release date. All right, so there we go with that one. Go with that article. So now we'll, of course, get ready to get into the last article here. Let's see where we're at on time here. All right. 34 minutes. All right, so not too bad there. All right, so let's see. We will go ahead and move on to the next article then here. All right, so and a friendly reminder, of course, if you guys haven't already, you guys can help out by liking and sharing the stream. See if we can get some more friendly people to engage. That'd be appreciated. Also, if anything here grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions. I'll try to answer the questions to the best of my ability. So, with that being said, comic shop owner facing felony obscenity charges for allegedly giving Grendel issue to Halloween trick-or-treater. Article by Spencer McCauley, published earlier today. So let's get into this one now. All right, so rather than ghosts, ghouls, and goblins, the scariest thing to haunt the city of Sunset Beach, North Carolina, this past Halloween was instead an issue of Matt Wagner's Grendel, the apparent distribution of which to a young trick-or-treater has led to a local comic shop owner, Kathleen Lincoln, being hit with felony obscenity charges. Hmm. Kind of wonder why that is. Grendel, so like it's pretty mature. As recapped by the Sunset Beach Police Department via their official Facebook page, the incident in question allegedly took place on October 30th, when during the city's annual Trunk or Treat event, the 59-year-old Lincoln, a registered participant on the trunk side, is said to have given away the first issue of 1993's Grendel Tales, The Devil's Hammer, to a young attendee. Made aware of the book's distribution by concerned parents and subsequently determining its contents were, quote, clearly inappropriate for children, unquote, the SBPD proceeded to present their findings to North Carolina Magistrate Judge Douglas Ritter and found, quote unquote, probable cause to charge Lincoln with, quote, a violation of North Carolina Statute 14-190.1 and signed a warrant for arrest. All right. Now, here's the question that comes to mind initially. Did she give this book knowing it was a pretty mature book to a child, or was it maybe like, first off, how old was the child that this comic was given to? One. Two, did she have a good idea of how old this child was and whether or not it would be considered appropriate for them? A lot of kind of hazy things here. This law, as detailed in the state's official criminal code, holds that, quote, it shall be unlawful for any person, firm or corporation to intentionally disseminate obscenity, unquote, itself defined as materials that, quote, depicts or describes in a patently offensive way sexual conduct, unquote. Quote, lacks serious literary, artistic, political, or scientific value. Quote, is not protected or privileged, unquote, under either the U.S. or North Carolina constitutions, and that the, quote, average person applying contemporary community standards, unquote, would find, quote, appeals to the prurient interest, in brackets here, a legal term defined as, quote, a shameful or morbid interest in nudity, sex, or excretion, unbracketed, in sex. So are they saying that they're not only saying that Grendel is a mature comic, but it's but they find that some of the material, again, I've never read Grendel, so if there does happen to be anybody who read it or heard of it, maybe you can give a little more context on it, I guess. Currently free after posting her $20,000 bail, Lincoln is officially accused of, quote, unlawfully, willfully, and feloniously did knowingly disseminate to a minor age 6 and thus under the age of 13 uh, tears tears a comic book containing images of men and women engaged in sex. Okay, if the kid was age, yeah, I mean, I could see what if the kid was age 6 and she gave them a comic where they are shown, where the characters are shown, I could see their point. My question would be, did she know? Well, you would think she probably would know because she's a comic shop owner. But agent sexual conduct which she knew and reasonably should have known to be obscene within the meaning of the general statute 14-190.1. Well, again, the idea of giving a child that young, 6 years old, any content with sex in it probably is not the best thing in the world to do. All right. The parents may have been right in reporting her. Did she now? The question really is, did she willfully do it? Like, was she trying to break the law? Was she just, or But again, we don't know for certain what's going on. Written and illustrated by Rob Walton with paints from Murney Miro and Catherine Delaney. Grendel Tales, The Devil's Hammer, Volume 1, Number 1. Well, that title alone should tell you that's probably not a title for kids. But opens a tale of Petrus Christus, a Christian man living in the Middle Ages, who, after finding himself the lone survivor of his village's massacre by a group of rogue Grendel acolytes, foolishly attempts to harness the evil spirit's power in hopes of turning it against it. Yeah, this sounds like something. Yeah, you wouldn't want to give a 6-year-old this kind of. I mean, I don't even think you'd want to give a 13-year. This sounds like something that that maybe at the youngest 15 should be allowed to read. But foolishly attempts harness the evil spirit's power in the hopes of turning it against the attackers. Having more in common with a Bible tale than a letter to Penthouse, while the issue does not depict any explicitly sexual situations, it does contain multiple instances of uncensored, full frontal male nudity and one particularly gruesome depiction of the Grendel pack butchering upon nude male and female bodies. In brackets, curious viewers interested in doing so can view a censored version of the pages at their own discretion here. So all that last statement I just read it's linking to probably a thing where. But yeah, this definitely sounds like something you don't want to be handing over to a 6-year-old. But I think where I mean, as a comic shopper, you would think she would know what she was doing. Now, unless somehow the 6-year-old came off as old, but even like at best, she could have thought the 6-year-old was maybe a 10-year-old, even though I doubt that'd be pretty serious too. I mean, you had to almost wonder why this woman would be giving a 6-year-old that kind of a comic. Unless she's just so blind that she couldn't tell that was a 6-year-old. You know, that's about the only thing I could really think on that matter. As such, while the issue's contents did not run afoul of North Carolina's 3 possible definitions for sexual conduct, um, those being, quote, vaginal, anal, or oral intercourse, whether actual or simulated, um, normal or perverted, unquote, quote, masturbation. Now, remember, I'm just reading the article here, giving my commentary. Um, so, yeah, this this stuff is pretty serious, though. Excretory functions or lewd exhibition of uncovered genitalia, unquote, and, quote, an act or a condition that depicts torture, physical restraint by being fettered or bound, or or flagellation of or by a nude person or a person clad in undergarments or in revealing or bizarre costume, unquote. Said portrayal of Grendel's cruelty likely did, even if it was not meant to titillate. So I think what they're trying to argue here is that um, even if sexual, I think in this case, the obscenity isn't as much about the sexual content as much as more just the gore and violence aspect of it. It sounds like what a lot of people were getting upset was more like this child being exposed to more the kind of gore and violence aspect of this comic. Though Lincoln has not yet offered an official public statement on her arrest, she did post and then quickly deleted a status update to her personal Facebook page announcing that Marvelous Issues comic shop is, quote, gonna be closed for a little while, unquote, as shared alongside artist Bill Malden's Weeping Lincoln illustration. Well, I think what she's going to try to argue is that this may breach her free speech, but again, it's a little bit trickier here because again, she should have known better than to give such a comment to does that mean I'm for censorship? No. She has a right to have the comic. She has a right to distribute it to to age appropriate people. But when she starts distributing it to age inappropriate people, that's when things are going to get a little more hairy. I don't know. I don't even understand why she would even think of giving the only possible thing I could even remotely think of is she somehow maybe thought the child was older, but she couldn't have thought the child was that much older to warrant giving them this book. Okay, that's the only thing. But anyways, but with that, of course, now we're done with the articles for evening, of course. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and move on to the wrestling wrap up as soon as I, of course, clear this out. Oh, wait. And then clear that out, of course. Yeah, so some interesting articles tonight, to say the least. Well, with that, let's go. Let's look back to last night. We're gonna get into the wrestling wrap up here. First off, look back to last night's SmackDown, or not SmackDown, but Raw, as WWE has now, of course, in the follow up to the events from Saturday night's main event, um, WWE will now, of course, um, be building towards this year's Survivor Series. And from what we've heard thus far, it looks like they are possibly looking to they're going back to the idea of Team Punk versus Team Vision here with the new version of the Vision, and we'll get into some of that with what we know of here. So, looking to last night's Monday Night Raw, which came from the Rio Rancho Event Center in Rio Rancho, New Mexico, on Netflix with Wade Barrett and Joe Testatore on commentary. The opening match saw the Judgment Day's female members of Roxanne Perez and Raquel Rodriguez defeating Nikki Bella and Women's World Champion Stephanie Vaquer in a tag team match to open up. As there's been some talk about a potential build between, to where Bella may turn heel and go after the world title. We'll just wait and see. The next match was a singles match pitting Penta versus El Grande Americano. El Grande Americano, of course, the current male speed champion, who had, of course, Bravo and Rayo Americano in his corner. Then the Kabuki Warriors of Asuka and Kairi Sane defeated the duo of Bayley and Lyra Valkyria. Then in a match for the WWE World Tag Team titles, the Judgment Day's Finn Balor and JD McDonough got their contractual rematch as they came up short against AJ Styles and Dragon Lee. So Dragon Lee and AJ Styles retained the World Tag Team titles. Now during against Judgment Day duo of Balor and McDonough. Now earlier in the show, CM Punk was talking about who he'd want to face for the world title. Logan Paul came out to confront him, only for the Vision to come out and confront them both. And what was believed to be a possible, as Logan Paul helped CM Punk fend off the Vision's attack, in what some people were thinking was going to be a Logan Paul face turn. What ended up happening is, because of that confrontation, there was a tag team match signed as the main event, but CM Punk teamed with his Saturday night's main event opponent, Jey Uso, to take on the Vision's Braun Breaker and Bronson Reed, in which the match ended in a double countout. As the Vision was beating down Punk and Uso, Logan Paul came out to supposedly make the save, only for him to turn on Punk and join the Vision. They have kind of a loose affiliation with the Division, as again they're pushing more towards the idea of a Team Vision versus Team Punk WrestleMania. Thus far, looking like, at least thus far, with CM Punk and the Usos on one side, and for a Survivor Series here, versus, of course, the Braun Breaker, Bronson Reed, and Logan Paul. The theory going around out there is that on Team Punk it'll be Punk, the Usos, Roman Reigns, and LA Knight possibly to take on the Vision of the Bronze, Logan Paul, Brock Lesnar, and Austin Theory in a Survivor Series match. I guess we'll just have to wait to see, and we'll see how things build over the next few weeks, as Survivor Series will be on the 29th. So now let's look ahead to tonight's NXT show. NXT. And on tonight, as soon as I get there. And on tonight's NXT, coming from the Performance Center in Orlando, Florida, on the CW. So already signed for tonight thus far. Signed for tonight's NXT. So opening six person or 6-woman tag match, we'll see fatal influence of former NXT Women's Champion Jacy Jayne teaming with Fallon Henley and Lainey Reed to take on Lola Vice and the Cullings, Izzy Dame, and current NXT Women's Champion Tatum Paxley. Also in a first round match in a tournament to crown the new WWE Women's Speed Champion, a title that vacated by Sol Ruca due to her injury. Ren Sinclair is set to face off against Zarya. And then you'll also see Saquon Sugars of Dark State taking on Javon Evans. So that's all we got with the wrestling wrap-up. So now what we're going to do, of course, is we're going to today is Tuesday, November the 4th, 2020. Today is Tuesday, November the 4th, 2025. So let's take a look back at this day in Nietzsche history. So let me just, actually, I do need to go off camera here for a quick moment, so I'll be right back, but let me put some music on while I'm gone. All right, so all right, so anyways, so let me just take a quick peek here. So 1965, 55, and 2000. All right. So first off, we're going to head back 70 years ago today. Is on this date 70 years ago today, back in 1955. Back in 1955, on this date, back from the Buffalo Memorial Auditorium, NWA Upstate held an event in Buffalo Memorial Auditorium. The main event saw a best 2 out of 3 falls tag team match in which Fred Atkins and Lord Athol Layton defeated Ilio DiPaolo and Whipper Billy Watson 2 falls to 1 in just over 30 minutes and 7 seconds. Also saw Bob Wagner defeat Bearcat Wright, and the opening match saw a time limit draw between Don Lewin and Pat Flanagan. So on this date, 70 years ago today, in NWA Upstate New York, the NWA Upstate had an event from the Buffalo Memorial Auditorium. So now, getting ready to now moving ahead to the year 1965. 1965. The 45th issue of Just Married from Charlton Comics Group went on sale on this date back in 1965, 60 years ago today. Sold for 12 cents and was 32 pages. This is, of course, one of those type of books. So, of course, throughout, aside from most of the time when we hear about comics, most people know of either the superhero comics or or um, the more humor comics, gag comics. But there are other genres that, including romance comics like this one here, Just Married. So the 45th issue here of Just Married went on sale on this date back in 1965, 60 years ago. And finally, we move ahead to the year 2000. On this date in the year 2000, on the Kids WB, X-Men, Phil Roman and Marvel Studios' X-Men Evolution premiered on Kids WB on this date back in 2000. So 25 years ago today, Phil Roman and Marvel Studios' X-Men Evolution premiered on this date back in 2000. All right. So with that being said, I thank everybody for being here tonight. Hope everybody enjoyed the show. Back here with more Niche News tomorrow, of course. And with that, and this Sunday I'll be joined by the Metal from the Vomitorium as we'll be looking at comics that went on sale in continue our trip down Comics History Lane in July of 1940, focusing in on comics that went on sale from MLJ magazines known today as Archie. So with that, I thank everybody for being here. Hope to see everybody back here tomorrow. Bye.